Trust technology. Technology says we're live, so we're live. Good morning, Alejandra Otero, joining us from Portugal. Are you today, or
Indeed, yes. Hey,
yeah?
Mark. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. Quite a kind of neo insider chat today, isn't it? I thought it would be a good opportunity to catch up because of, was it last week? It feels like a million years ago now. Last week, the week before, we were in Milan,
Or yeah.
working with an amazing partner of Neo, a client of Neo, and I was in the sort of passenger seat, observing you delivering training to marketing and admissions professionals inside a higher education institution. And I thought it was just really something different to what I'd ever seen before. And it would be a good sort of idea to catch up and talk about, share experiences about training, sort of professional training that we've all experienced all types of stuff. And then kind of go towards what your approaches are and what Neo's approaches are to professional training, because it's definitely something different, which I really enjoy in a good way, which I really enjoy. I should have put that first. So I just wanted to ask you, I mean, let's think back, I mean, both of us, about our own experiences of professional training. So not like university and college, but in working for an employer, and when they say there's a training session, what kind of experiences have you had? What's your sort of background in this?
Hmm. Good question. Wow. I think that's very diverse depending on the speaker and the topic, I would say. But more than that, because those are the traditional two things, more than that, it also depends on what's happening in the setting where you're actually doing the training. So, what's the company culture like? What's the institution culture like? And who is attending that training also is very important, because if the top management and the rest of the employees are also attending it, not necessarily everyone would be willing to share some insights or not. So depending on the different settings, people attending, the speaker, the place as well, I've had very very different experiences. Some very positive, some very strange, and some very boring. So yeah, I think it's different depending on those very different factors.
So let's get some examples. I mean, obviously not naming names, but in terms of the categories you mentioned there, the really positive ones, the really boring ones, and the really weird ones, which I'm super interested to hear about as well, because I've definitely experienced all of those things as well. And somewhere you come out of and you're like, was that for us?
Yep.
It's like they just kind of took it off the shelf and just kind of delivered it, and that weird feeling that you're like, you don't feel like they really got you at all, or got what you were or the reality of your situation. And there are other sessions, aren't there, where you're like, honestly, you could have sent me these PowerPoint slides.
That's it.
I can't believe you've come in to read slides to me. I can't believe that. So what have your experiences been like in those categories? Let's start with the really good ones, and then the really boring ones, and then the kind of weird ones. What makes them like that?
Okay, so I think I can actually put some names here on the very positive ones, not on the
Okay,
on
okay.
the
Okay.
unpositive ones.
Right.
So I remember a fantastic training that I attended that was delivered by Mark Hamana, who was actually
Hmm.
someone who participated in geNEOusChats with us some time ago. It
Yeah.
was just fantastic because of the focus and because of Mark, very clearly. And why am I saying this? Because on the one hand, the focus was a lot about the person and not about the professional setup. Yes, we're there to improve the professional aspect of things, but the main focus should be on the people. And so that was amazing. As a workshop, we did very funny things like holding a stick, many people holding a stick, and it had to be able to balance, with some people being a little bit taller, others shorter, and yet it had to be the same. So a lot of collaboration exercises, focusing on you putting an adjective on someone, but everything is anonymous and it's about the person. And all of that was driven in a very safe space, I would say, that was created by, in that case, Mark as a trainer. And that kind of trainings I really, really enjoy because they are on the very personal level, which is the core. If we're not our personal selves, then what is it that we're doing? Yes, we're there to work, but who is the person working? And that's the very important thing. So that was a very positive experience, I would say.
Before you move on, just quickly, what was the actual focus of that training? What was the objective?
Yeah, so the objective, it was actually team building. Okay,
Right.
so collaboration between departments that usually don't work necessarily on a daily basis together, and yet on people who work together, but maybe they don't know themselves in different angles outside from the traditional daily collaboration. And it was really, really interesting for me to see how admissions, communications, marketing, academics, and administration departments come together in a training where no one knows what to expect, and we get there and we talk about like very personal stuff, and it's all fine, and it's actually even better in some cases, or at least it sets the tone to then focus on the professional side.
Right. Yeah, I think this is the important thing, is that when trainers come in and they try to train, I think of it as that they're training the roles and not the people. They're training the job descriptions and the structures, but not the people who make that up. So if you've got a bunch of departments who aren't working well together and you come in and you start talking immediately about, well, here's the organizational objectives, we've all got to pull together here. Let's look at communication channels. Let's look at distribution of work. Let's look at demarcation of responsibilities and workflows and stuff like that. You're totally missing the reason why this is like, people know how to do this. People know how to work together, but you have to really acknowledge that there's an issue. You have to understand why there's an issue, and you've got to start to empathize with others and kind of figure out why there's that sort of divide. And if you can address that, then the rest of it, it almost naturally falls into place. I think people, we've got to trust that people are in these jobs because they actually know how to do these things often as well. But instead, we think the problem is they don't know how to do the processes, rather than thinking about the person and what they're feeling, what they're thinking. And that, I've been in that situation many times, and you think, yeah, we're just going at the surface here. So it sounds like Mark. And I remember talking to Mark, and he's such a human, Mark. I could imagine that he's very empathetic. It just makes all the difference, doesn't it?
It does, absolutely. So that's why for me, the trainer is also a very important component, of course. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was, again, a positive experience.
And how about the boring ones then?
Okay, let's
what
go.
What kind of things are people doing?
Yeah, the boring ones is in my perspective. Okay, this is something very, very personal. Is the ones where we don't know why we're there. Okay, and we're just sitting in a room with a trainer or even someone internally who has taken the role of doing the training, not even inviting an external person. And it just all seems so disconnected. The person is talking about me, myself, and I. And it's completely like that same speech could be done for the company, for this institution, but it can be absolutely replicated to any other institution and it would feel the exact same, because it's just something that is completely canned and that has nothing to do with the personal situation of the people, with the very specific advancements of the institution, and therefore it just feels totally fake. So you're just sitting there and telling yourself, okay, how long is it that I have? Oh my God. Okay, a few
Yeah.
more hours. Let's do this. We can do this. And waste of time, but more than a waste of time, it's actually dragging energy from you.
Hmm.
So you are there instead of creating something together, you're there giving your energy to someone who, I'm sorry, but does not deserve your energy in that particular case. And you get out more drained than what you actually got into. And you don't have any key takeaways where you say, oh, I've learned these amazing things today. This training was super helpful. And that kind of training, in my opinion, is very disconnected, is very descendant, very hierarchical. Is I tell you this, no
Yeah.
practical application. The kinds of the ones that read the PowerPoint, as you were saying, that training seems to me extremely alienated, and it's just, yeah, I'm not connecting with the person at any, nor personal nor professional.
Yeah, I've definitely been there, and I find that one of the hallmarks of that type of training is one of the signals is the way that they what kind of motivation are they trying to build? It's not the internal motivation of, trying to help you feel connected to your purpose within the organization, trying to help you feel empowered, and the type of motivation that makes you end the training session where you have more energy than you went in with. Like,
Correct.
you might be kind of physically tired, or you've been sitting in the seat and stuff, but mentally, spiritually, you're like, yes, I can't wait to get into this. That's how you should feel. Instead, you've got the poor kind of second cousin of internal motivation, which is external motivation, and they're saying things like, you need to know this because we have to improve performance. If we don't do this, a threat, competitors will do X and Y. This external stuff that doesn't connect with your internal motivation at all. And when you start to get those signals from, and this is in education too, anybody in sort of training facilitation, I think they've lost you. They've really lost you. If that's the argument, it's like, being back in school when they're like, you need to know this because it's in the exam. It's the same thing. And it's just like, I'm sorry, that's not good enough for me to
Totally.
be here,
Couldn't agree
Yeah.
more. Absolutely.
How about the weird ones?
Okay, so the weird one. I have one very recent example, and I think we can be open about it. It sounded weird from some point, but luckily, I think the outcome was extremely positive. But at the very beginning, I didn't even know what to expect. So the story is the backstory is. We went to Milan, right? And before going to Milan together, I said, okay, I'm going to do a workshop, a training workshop for a client of ours, but I also want to spend some time with the team and do internal trainings for the team. And the last time we met 6 months ago with the team, everyone said, okay, what if we bring an external person to do some training to us? And I was thinking
Mhm.
for a while, okay, what kind of training or external training should we bring in this occasion? And don't ask me how or why, Mark, but I had this conversation with someone, an external person, and she told me, okay, I can do something for you. I can come to Milan, but I suggest doing something completely different. And I'm like, okay, yeah, let's do it. What is it? And the moment she told me the topic, I was like, yeah, great. And I didn't even know what to expect because the topic was fear. And that's not the kind of topic you discuss in a training. So it felt weird to me. And I was in my head like, okay, if we want to talk about fear, this is very personal. Can we do
Mhm.
this with the team? Luckily enough, I think Neo, we have such a fantastic team that everyone was super keen on exploring this. But it's a topic that can be very uncomfortable, and that's why I say
Yeah.
it was weird, because we're talking about very personal stuff that then unveil the true person in us. Forget about mask or anything on, it's vulnerability 100%, and it can feel extremely weird. But
Yeah.
the outcome of this kind of workshop, for me personally, after having cried together and exposed all our fears and hugged each other 700 times. We are such a solid team, and the
Yeah.
experience after, or before, during, and after the training, as weird as it could sound, it was just fantastic. But even me, from the beginning, when I heard like the content, it's going to be a workshop on fear, and I said, okay, I'm
Yeah.
going to bring my team building to, like a team building with my neo team, to talk about fear. This feels weird, and yet we want this kind of very deep conversations for a meaningful encounter. And that's an example I can think of as of now for the weird, but very positive weird.
I couldn't agree more. And I think that so there might be people listening to this who work in, you know, in our sector, in education, in marketing, admissions, recruitment, things like that. And of course, with the training there, you would think about, okay, hierarchies and automation of CRMs and blah, 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 blah. The interesting thing I think about like our team is that I think, you know, there's a lot of, you know, everyone's lifelong learners, right? Everyone is like super keen to like, okay, I've got a knowledge gap. How do I plug it? And we're more than happy to sit and work with one other person or work ourselves and figure that out and develop that, and then develop it through experience with support at your side, you know? So using a training session for that does not seem like the best use of, for me, like, you know, time is so precious, so precious. So many organizations I've been in that they have meeting after meeting after meeting without thinking that you're not spending an hour. There are 10 people in that meeting. That's 10 hours of time. And you come out of it and you're like, for what, you know, really, for what? I just, you know, I really, I'm very, when, if I have a meeting, it's got to be really, really kind of worth it, you know? So I think that the use of time here in this case was so well used. And I wouldn't say, you said we were kind of keen to do it. I think that I felt like we're all sitting there, you know, pens and paper ready, with that mindset of like, this is a training session. We're going to, you know, interact, I'm sure, but essentially we're passengers. Essentially we are, you know, there's a part of us kind of that remains behind, and we're just kind of interacting on this level. And none of us, I think, expected that at all. And I'd like, you know, one thing I've been thinking about a lot is you mentioned that it worked as well because, you know, we are, you know, a close team already, but let's think about the fact that there were 2 new team members that had never been once in a full team meeting. This was their first meeting.
Yeah. And we were
And
all
yet,
right.
exactly. So there's something else. It's not just, and I think that's an important point, is for organizations thinking about like, could I have this kind of very person-centered training about what makes us connect to ourselves and to other people? Can we do that? Or do we have to kind of build that, you know, that safe space first? And it's like, yes and no. If people feel good with the people around them, even if they, you know, they've never done something like that before, I think we just proved that it can work. And it's just about feeling like you're all on a level playing field, I think. And I think that's where the external person comes in. And like you say, the hierarchical thing really kind of has problems for training. You know, people don't want to reveal, they don't want to speak their truth as well. You know, there's all kinds of weird things going on. But in there, it felt like a very level playing field. And especially, and the best thing was, Alejandra, that you went first, you know, and you set the tone. Because I think if someone else had gone first and they'd been a little more mechanical with it, it wouldn't have worked. But I think, and I guess you consciously went first to be like, I'm going to set the tone here. I'm going to try to like dig deep and just give everything. And then, you know, the rest of us going into it are like, well, we can't be half-assed about it now. You know, we've just heard this, so we've got to give everything. And we did. And not a single person in the team, I think, would ever have any regrets about that. Because like you say, we're now absolutely solid, more so than ever before, and connected in a different way that is so important, but so hard to build in a remote team. So, you know, I'd like to see more trainings like focused on this side. You know, why is it that we think that the workspace has to be about, the more mechanical, systematic, structural, procedural stuff, when really this was the most impactful training I've ever had inside a team. So how do you account for that? So I mean, what would you say about, in terms of training, taking it back to, I mean, because I don't think Neo Academy is kind of saying, oh, we're going out there and we're doing this kind of stuff with all our clients and things like that.
No.
But in terms of training, what do you think that, putting all this together, that you've learned about what makes training work, and thinking about the workflow, about the way that you select a focus, the way that you plan and prepare for it, the way that you help prepare the participants for it, and then the actual delivery and the follow-up. So what do you think, walking through the workflow, what are the sort of best practices that you think you've arrived at through your experiences on both sides of delivery?
Yeah. So first of all, Mark, I don't think this kind of training is feasible with every single institution because of many reasons. It can go very, very if we don't have a safe space, as we talked about it before. So I wouldn't focus on making people very vulnerable if they are not able to be respected, and if they are not gonna fall after that, basically just for internal purposes. So there's several clients that come to us, and the first thing they say, okay, let's do a training on KPIs, let's do a training on the student journey, let's do a training on CRM. Big yes to that, absolutely. And that's our core. We're not psychologists. It's our core is not the person itself. It's not the mind, the brain. That's not what we do as a core. Our expertise is the education marketing sector. However, in order to unveil the best possible strategies, the best possible scenarios for these examples, as the customer journeys, buyer personas, and this kind of very, very specific information related to what we are expecting for student recruitment purposes, we need to set the tone of what is it that we are doing here, the why, what makes us happy, what makes us grow, why is it that we're showing up for work every single day, what is it that my colleagues think of me, what is it that I feel like my colleagues can help me with, what can I improve, what are they not telling me because they are fearing to hurt me, what is it that I don't know yet and I think I know and yet I don't. And this very these elements that it's the taboo, right? We don't talk about that much, and yet if we don't bring those people together as an external and really allow that space, it's very complicated to talk afterwards about the training related to buyer personas, because if we talk about the buyer personas 100%, that's always going to be our core at Neo, the education marketing part. But to talk about that, we really, really, really need people to be able to express themselves, to remove the mask, to really say what they think, and to not be afraid of sharing their experiences. And one very interesting exercise is, okay, we're gonna create the sales funnel or replicate the sales funnel. And we have a lot of people in the room, they have been doing this for many times. They work in admissions, they know their sales funnel from up and down. And yet you ask the the team to draw separately the sales funnel, and you would see that each sales funnel is different in a certain way.
Yeah, that surprised me a lot, actually.
Absolutely.
Totally different.
Absolutely. But not only in what happens, what email is sent when, what are the different stages, that stays the same. But what is different is the way people draw it. Some draw it vertically, some other drawing or horizontally, some drawing in a circular phase. Some people go much more in detail on content. Some other
Yeah.
go more in detail on the student experience. Some stop at the moment the student pays. Some other stop at the moment the student becomes an alumni. So there's many different elements to take into account here that are, of course, the focus. But before getting there, we do need everyone to be able to speak out and say, okay, this is what I believe is the case today.
Mm.
But maybe I would suggest that we add this, or I think we're missing that because I've heard from the student this or that. And for them to be able to have the best possible experience in that core training, we first, at least from our end at NEO, we suggest focusing on the soft skills and then going with the hard skills.
Yeah, and I'd like to sort of add here that my observation of this was that it might sound to people that, because we discussed our experiences as a team of training, just to make clear that that experience was not what was delivered. Like you say, you're not bringing that same thing to every people on that level. There's
No.
different focuses for different clients. And what I saw was it was skillfully delivered, because it felt very safe, and it felt like the team were super up for just exploring it, and it was very non-threatening, and it was you could feel people kind of bonding a bit more. It's just as simple as reminding ourselves and each other that we're all here, for a reason, and we want to get the best out of each other, and we want to get the best out of ourselves, and we want to enjoy our time there. We want to feel like we're connected, and we want to feel like we're doing something that matters. And it can just be as simple as exploring a way to remind ourselves and each other of that, so that we feel like we're on a shared journey together. Okay, you, like you say, you drop the mask, and you talk about how you feel about stuff, and it's not like a very threatening, exposed kind of, psychotherapy session. It's absolutely not that at all. It felt very safe. And the important thing is that if the trainer, you in this case, is skillful enough, it's just led by them, and they dictate where the boundaries are, and they dictate where they feel comfortable going. And
Totally.
nobody feels pushed or anything like that. So it felt totally comfortable. I'm very, very, as a teacher myself, I am so hyper aware of tension and uncomfortable situations. And I feel it physically, where I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to get out of this room because that felt awkward. And, that's me. So I'm very aware of that. And I never felt like that once. So it felt very smooth and comfortable. And like you say, when you go into the next bit, people are more, they depersonalize stuff, so they're not like feeling embarrassed about the way that they've represented the customer journey or the sales funnel. They're like, it's okay because we're all the same. We're all just trying to work this out together. So they're quite happy to stick it up on the wall and have a laugh about forgetting something totally important, and, a chuckle about how different everything is. And it feels depersonalized. And that's where you can make progress. When people are not like, they don't have a wall up and they're like crafting rhetoric around, like a mask, and using the salesy words and, being the role rather than the person in the training, you just don't make progress, because all you're doing is it just reinforces that same self-concept, and you make no progress because people are just going to do exactly what they did before. But it felt like there was real progress in that room because you got that human approach first, which is, I think that there must be more of that. There must be more of that in professional training.
Yeah, I really hope as well that many institutions realize that, and that yes, if we want to focus on very specific marketing related trainings or student recruitment related trainings, that's absolutely fine, and that's already ideal, and hopefully it happens in many occasions throughout the year. But it cannot only be about numbers, about metrics, but because people come first. And that's, again, I have my theory, but this is me. and I think I've said it out loud many times, is the teams I manage, I'm sorry, but the one-to-one meetings I have with them are not about how many students you have now, which percentage are you for your target. Not at all. It's about how are you doing? How is your family? How is it that I can help you? Is there anything that you're going through that I should be aware of? And of course, it
Mm.
requires a lot of confidence from the person and a lot of trust on both ways. But at the same time, as soon as you reach that level, if people are happy, you're going to perform or even outperform. But you need
Yeah,
to first focus on the person for them afterwards to be able to be successful in what they do. If they're not happy, forget about those KPIs. You're not going to reach them.
totally. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's completely it. It's that hire well,
mm,
but nurture the person. I
yep,
mean, the whole thing of micromanagement is just a soul killer. And it's amazing there are people still doing that haven't figured that out yet. Especially in an age where people have so many more options. Like they're starting to realize, like with the digital sphere, they can work from here and there. They get some language skills, they do some networking on social networks, and suddenly they've got all kinds of career opportunities opening up. And
mm,
retention is a major issue. And why? Because you're not building relationships, and you're not helping the person feel self-actualized, in the space they're coming to every day. And as soon as they start thinking, why am I giving my valuable time to this, they're done, and you will never get the best from them. And it's definitely not about, I mean, there's an altruism here as well. We want to be interested in the person because we actually care, not because you get like, oh, you get the best results. People are happier when they're performing well.
yes,
So it's not a manipulative thing. It's like everybody wants to be the best version of themselves. It's as
totally,
simple as that, right? Yeah.
totally.
One thing, just to kind of round things off a little bit, like the aside from the human-centered stuff, I mean, I noticed certain things, like certain topics, were really working in that room as well. And I was thinking about things like, for a team which works kind of, in their team and in their sort of, I don't want to say bubble, but I mean, it's like you're very like focused on what you're doing. One thing I noticed that was really helpful to them was, when you started talking about, hey, in other institutions they do it like this, or 10% of institutions focus on this and 20% on that. And just getting people to think outside their niche and their team and their dynamic seemed to
Yeah.
be really helpful as well. What other stuff are you finding that, whether it's topics or approaches that are really like useful for modern, progressive, dynamic marketing and recruitment and admissions teams that want to take things to the next level? What kind of stuff do you think should be in there, or that you would propose to institutions?
Okay, so from the top of my mind, I can think of um, three things very quickly. One is that yes, your team is already well versed in, let's say, product training, fantastic, but
Mm-hmm.
that same team is only working within your institution and is very much focused on what your institution is doing, and only gets access for the lucky ones to the outside world whenever they talk to agents or to other universities, or when they go to conferences, but not the full team usually does that. So having an external team member coming and saying, hey, this happened at that conference, and FYI, we're doing things really well because only 11% of institutions are calling the leads, for example, at this stage, and we're doing so amazing, guys, congrats. This kind of framework mapping from things that are happening outside of the bubble, as you said, is certainly something to keep in mind. And if the full team does not have access to this touch point with other with the outside world, let's call it, at least if I'm the manager of that team, I should bring back those insights from whatever I see to the team, or I should bring people, external people, to present that to the team and reassure them and do this these check-ins very often to say, hey, this is what we did, this is where we are, this is where we want to go, look how we went from this point to this point in this long. This is only something that I suggest. So that's one thing that comes to my mind. Number two, which I would love to see more and more, and yet it's still very early stages, mentoring. So many people, as knowledgeable as they can be on the hard skills part, I would really strongly suggest that all of us go through some mentoring with a mentor that can be from the same industry, that can be from another industry. You can decide whether it's more of a professional mentoring, more of a personal mentoring, but having someone who puts a little, let's say, framework for you and helps you grow, but also helps you being accountable for your growth and measure that growth. So let's put some targets together, but not targets as of, I need to do this or I'm fired. It's a target with myself and it's a target for myself. So it's something very interesting in my case, which I've been seeing it through the AIE, for example. I'm a mentor for the AIE, and the exchanges I've had lately on the mentorship side, they are so useful, not only for the mentee, I hope, but also for the mentor, which is extremely positive on both sides. And you have that common connection, call it bi-weekly, once a month, whatever kind of time frame you want to dedicate to that, and whatever frequency, but having someone who can relate to what you are doing and who can bring suggestions, who can only be there to talk, to listen to you, to ask those uncomfortable questions, to say, hey, I'm feeling this way, have you ever felt this way, or I'm willing to try this, does this sound totally off for you? And this kind of check-ins with someone who's not within your institution necessarily, that's super interesting in my case, I would say. And the third one I can think of is really a training plan for internal growth, hopefully, where we sometimes we need to put ourselves in two roles. I always try to sit on both seats. The seat of the manager, been training the team for a while, and okay, I have now a very well-versed team. They know what they do. Amazing. I'm going to achieve so many great results with this fantastic team. Great. Now sit on the other side, and you have the team who has doing the same job for a little while, and they also want some progress or some change. There's a mismatch there. So what can I do as a manager? Can I just be extremely focus on what I want, which is my targets, and I have that team who can achieve them for sure? Or can I be a little superior to that and say, you know what, my personal goal is that my team members grow personally and professionally, and if that means that I need to lose one of them so that they can go to another internal position because they have already just develop those skills, and I can only be happy for their success, I think I'm contributing way more to them and to the institution. And then it's also my role to hire someone else to be able to provide that person that training and also contribute to that person's growth. So I think it's all part of this circular model. And instead of focusing on, oh, okay, I have already this team, I'm going to stick to it, they're going to stay in the same role for a while because now they're trained. That's very off now, I would say. And hopefully many more managers and many more head of departments can start focusing from a very early stage on what is it that that person wants to do. One conversation I always have when I hire someone, and it can sound extremely weird, but at the very beginning, first week in, is, okay, where do you see yourself in this long? And it can sound weird because they just started in a position and it's very complicated. But then let's do another check-in in 6 months and see where you are, and another check-in in 1 month, in 1 year, sorry, and see how have we progressed. Are you still looking for the same? Is this pushing you enough? Is this challenging enough? Is this comfortable enough? And have the right balance between all of those elements. So my suggestion here would be also to have a training plan, but that training plan based on serving the person and not serving only the department.
Yeah, and that sounds to me like something that not every culture is going to go for, are they? I mean, because it requires the people who are in leadership positions to be willing to be open a bit and to say, you know, and that is often difficult. I mean, well, I would say managers. I mean, leaders, I use that word very consciously. If you're in a leadership role, then you should be open to this.
Yep.
But in management roles, it can be difficult. And it's almost when somebody comes in and you see that there's some sort of shift that needs to happen, there are people that might take that as a failing of them personally, you know, and take it defensively and simply not open to it. And unfortunately, that is the case. But I think that more and more people are open to it. You know, things are changing generally, generationally. People don't seem to be as concerned with like this idea of kind of promotion and title, but it's more about growth and learning. And of course, you've got to be, you know, fairly paid for the work you do and all that kind of stuff. But it seems to be that, you know, people they want different things now. You know, they want variety. They want to learn. They want to feel challenged. And so a manager thinking that it's about kind of climbing a ladder or something like that, and results and, you know, all this kind of stuff, it's completely out of sync. But you'll never know that unless you get these people in the room, you create that space, and you say, what is it you want? Where do you see yourself? Where you know, what's working for you? So yeah, so I guess then you'd have to have pretty extensive conversations with the people contracting the training first to say, you know, are you open to this? Because you don't want to just come in and read PowerPoints at people, right? So
No, certainly not. And as a matter of fact, a very important conversation from our end as we go and do those trainings to some of our clients is to discuss with the top management these elements, like what is the kind of culture you have internally? Am I, as a trainer, able to really dig deeper on what is it the person wants? And is this going to be fulfilled afterwards? Because if I come as a trainer and have this conversation with the person and then internally nothing changes, then that's going to translate into frustration. So many different points here from our angle, which is okay, and we're very flexible on that. We are absolutely aware that not every institution actually has the same focus. So we go with some institutions with only the scope they want, which is in some cases fully transactional. On, I need a training on CRM, it's going to be a technical training and that's it. No soft skills part, absolutely no problem, we do that. On the other hand, we have some who say, oh, soft skills, interesting, let's see what that is, and they're mostly curious. So we start with the soft skills part and then the hard skills on a different workshop. And then we have others who say, hey, let's do this fully. And usually with those, it's not a one-time thing, but mostly something that we do on several like episodes. And that's when we start to really get to know the team and to be able to support the growth, whether on the sales side, on the marketing side, on the leadership side. Those three elements of trainings we do, but we need to know also what is it that the institution wants and the institution can enable, so that we come in to support and not to create any friction.
Right. That sounds really important. Like, don't open the door, you know, to something if you can't walk through it. And I think that's something that really kills a team, doesn't it? When you dangle this idea of professional and personal growth.
Yep. Expectation management.
It's so critical, my goodness. And I've seen it as well. I've been in situations where you've heard managers saying, you know, these having these conversations, where do you see yourself? what can I do for you? What do you need from me? And you open yourself to that, and you invest in it emotionally, and you say, right, this is what I think, and this is what I feel, and there's nothing behind it, and when that happens, and you realize you're gone, you've lost trust, you've lost faith.
Yep.
Completely. So yeah, I think that's really good to have those conversations and be like, if it's going to be transactional, let's make it, like, you're going to take care of your team and stuff, you want us to come in and talk about lead scoring or whatever, like, okay, that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's fine. But yeah, expectation management seems really critical. Yeah, no, I get that, and I think it's really good to hear that training is managed in such a careful way, so that you get the most out of people, and the expectations are really clear, rather than just, here's my off-the-shelf training, choose from the list, what do you want? Bang, we come in and read our PowerPoints to you and disappear off into the sunset. That seems to me almost an abuse of the position of responsibility you have as a trainer, that you're asking people to invest their time in you.
Yep.
I don't think that should be, it's unfortunately still common, isn't it? But
no, totally. And one thing I do want to comment on, Mark, on this topic is sometimes training, or the kind of training we're requested, it's not even only for staff members, but also for students. And that kind of training actually comes sometimes in the form of giving a class, a workshop, giving a guest lecture. And it's something that instigate maybe a little sparkle on the student side, but also on the admins who are requesting this kind of trainings for the students, and then get to see the comments from the students saying, hey, this is a little different from the traditional teacher coming in, right? And so
yeah,
in some cases we've seen me delivering very different kind of guest lectures or courses, and then the management reaching out saying, we got some feedback, is there any chance we can do something similar for the staff? And that makes total sense, because in some cases they might be a bit scared to apply any of those internally, or it might not be the typical journey they go through with internal training of staff members. But teacher training or teaching to students is something much more common. So in those cases, that's also something that we do. And for me, the sole focus in all of that is knowledge transfer. And that's my purpose. That's what drives me. That's my goal, is whatever, as little, as big as it can be, whatever I can transfer to the audience I have in front of me, that's what really, really motivates me, because we need to have a positive impact for the upcoming generations. We need to be able to share whatever we know to better grow as a community. And that's why going to conferences, doing these talks in very different formats, call it inside a team, call it in the classroom with the students, call it for teachers, call it at a conference center in a session, that is really all tied together as training in a certain extent. It all ties back to the sole focus that really, really drives my purpose, which is knowledge transfer.
Yeah. Well, I think that's really clear, and hopefully it's clear to folks listening that are maybe, there might well be people out there that are, they've had that experience that we talked about earlier about professional training. They have it in a certain box in their mind, that it is transactional, and that it's about filling like a gap in knowledge, and it doesn't touch anything else. And yet, are maybe sometimes have these experiences like, well, it didn't really change very much. And it's like, maybe listening to this conversation, maybe reflecting a little bit on, okay, why? Maybe because it didn't address some of these things around it. And hopefully being open to actually considering it, because, I can certainly attest that I think a lot of people are looking for something more. You know, they're looking for this sort of stuff. They don't want to just sit in a chair and have information thrown at them. It's the same as our beliefs as a team around education. You know, it's about being harmonious with that sense of purpose. You know, delivering that to clients and partners as well. You know, you can't talk about your values as a team and your sense of purpose as a team and then go in and do something totally at odds with that.
Please.
For others. It has to be consistent, right? So hopefully that's something that's coming across, and they know that if they're looking for that kind of experience where it's a transformative training session and not a transactional, which is a really important distinction, that they know that that's out there and that doesn't have to be the suit reading the PowerPoint and boring everyone to tears. And yeah, we've all been there, and I think we've had enough of that, right? So yeah, so
But
thank you for sharing that.
Transformative rather than transactional. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Big yes to that.
Yeah,
Yep.
we need to leave a session changed, even if it's in a small way. We need to be changed. It's about growth in all things, right? You know, even if it's just an idea, or even if it's just understanding my colleagues a little better, even if it's just saying there's a person behind that role. So maybe before I send that email, I think about how they feel, and I realize we're all actually aiming in the same direction, and it's not these kind of little tribal fiefdoms of marketing, admissions, academics, you know, all the stuff that goes on. Whatever's happening, you know, I think it should be about you walk out of that room a little different than you walked in, you know, however that is. I think if you can get there, then you're doing a good job, right? You know.
Yes, big yes. That's what we all hope for. And yeah, I hope that many more institutions actually open the door to this.
Let's hope so, eh? Let's hope so, because it's for the better. In the end, it serves everybody. It serves the people that they serve. And that's what it's all about, right? That's why we're doing this. You know, it makes it a better institution, which is better for the learners who are coming through. It's a better experience for them, and it's all about them in the end. So thank you for sharing all of that, Alejandra. It's been really interesting.
Thank
Thanks
you, Mark,
for making the time.
for opening this space for me today.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. And I'll let you get back to sunny Portugal, and I'll get back to grey Scotland.
Yeah, well, I can't complain about that indeed.
No, you can't. You can't. You get no sympathy if you do. So, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Have a lovely day, Alejandra. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend. Ciao.
You too. Bye-bye.